Could your retirement savings be quietly generating income that you are not even using? And what would that mean for how long your money actually lasts? Hello everyone, I'm Daniel Robert Whitmore, and I've spent over 20 years working with the Social Security Administration, helping Americans plan for the retirement they've earned. Today, I want to talk with you about something that honestly gets a lot of people worried and discouraged unnecessarily. The idea that you need millions of dollars to live off dividend income in retirement. I encounter this fear all the time. Someone comes to me and says, "Daniel, I want to know how much money I need so my investments can generate enough income for me to retire." I looked it up online and the answer was absolutely crushing. Websites told me I'd need $2.4 million, and I just about gave up right there. And I understand that reaction completely. $2.4 million feels out of reach for most of us. But here's what I want to tell you. That number is misleading because it's not considering the full picture of how retirement income actually works. You see, the mistake those articles make is this. They assume that dividends need to cover every single penny of your retirement spending, 100%. But that's not how it works for most of us. Most of us in retirement don't live entirely on investment income. We have other sources. We have Social Security. Some of us have pension income from former employers. Some of us have rental income or income from businesses we sold. These income sources form the foundation of our retirement spending, and then dividends supplement what those sources don't quite cover. Let me walk you through an example that's much more realistic and hopefully much more encouraging. Let's say you and your spouse together want to spend about $6,000 each month in retirement. That's $72,000 per year. That's a solid, comfortable retirement for many people. Now let's say that between the two of you, Social Security is going to give you $4,000 per month. That's wonderful. Social Security covers 2/3 of what you want to spend. The gap is only $2,000 per month, which is $24,000 per year. That's the number that matters. That's the amount you actually need your dividends to generate. Now I'm going to ask you a very different question. How much portfolio do you need to generate $24,000 per year in dividends? And the answer might surprise you, because the math is completely different from what those scary websites were telling you. Let me show you why this matters by looking at some real companies. I want to be very clear. I'm not recommending that you buy any of these stocks. I'm just using them as illustrations to help you understand how dividends work and why diversification matters. Let's start with a company that pays quite a generous dividend. Simon Property Group, for instance, yields about 6.68% annually. If all of your money were invested in Simon Property Group and you wanted to generate $24,000 per year, you'd divide 24,000 by 0.0668. That tells us you'd need approximately $353,000. Now compare that to the 2.4 million figure. You're suddenly looking at a much more achievable target. Let's look at another example, AT&T. Now AT&T is a company many of you may know well. It pays dividends of about 6.2%. If we apply the same math, dividing 24,000 by 0.062, we need about $387,000 invested in AT&T to generate that income. Still nowhere near 2.4 million. What about Johnson & Johnson? It's a fantastic company, but it yields about 2.75%. Dividing our target 24,000 by that yield means you'd need about $873,000 in Johnson & Johnson stock. Still more attainable than those scary numbers. And then there's Apple. Apple is an incredible company, but it doesn't pay much of a dividend at all, just 0.56%. If you had all your money in Apple and tried to live off the dividends, you'd need over $4 million. That's the kind of number that makes people despair. But here's the insight I want you to really grasp. You don't have to choose just one of these companies, and you shouldn't. And that's where the real danger lies with single stock investing. Because while all of these are good companies, they don't all perform the same way over time. Let me tell you about what happened with AT&T. Over the last 25 years, if you invested in AT&T, your total return was about 4.4% annually. That sounds okay, but here's the problem. The stock price itself declined. As the company paid out profits as dividends, the underlying value of the stock went down. Meanwhile, the broader stock market, the S&P 500, grew at about 8.3% annually over the same period. So you'd have been significantly better off diversifying rather than concentrating your money in AT&T. Now consider General Electric. Back in the year 2000, if you adjusted for stock splits and reverse splits, GE traded at about $465 per share. Today, it's in the mid-70s. That's a massive decline. And the dividend? GE's dividend per share has gone from 41 cents all the way down to less than 1 cent per share today. If you had bet your retirement on GE dividends in the year 2000, relying on those generous dividend payments to fund your life, you would have been in serious trouble. This is why the greatest risk with dividend investing isn't the dividend yield itself. The greatest risk is concentrated exposure to individual companies. Companies can cut their dividends suddenly. Stock prices can decline. What seems like a stable income stream today can evaporate tomorrow. This is where I want to introduce you to the better approach: dividend-focused exchange-traded funds, or ETFs. An ETF is essentially a basket of stocks, often dozens or even hundreds of companies, all bundled together and purchased as a single investment. A dividend ETF specifically holds companies known for paying regular, stable dividends. Let me give you a specific example. The Schwab U.S. Dividend ETF is one that I find particularly useful for illustrating this concept. As of right now, it has a yield of about 3.27%. What does that mean? It means if you own this fund and you look at all the companies inside it, the average dividend yield across all those holdings is 3.27%. You're not betting on one company. You're benefiting from the dividend payments of dozens and dozens of companies, all in one investment. So let's go back to our math. We need $24,000 per year. We divide that by 3.27%, and we get $734,000. Think about that. If you had a portfolio of $734,000 invested in a diversified dividend ETF like this, the dividend income alone would generate the $2,000 per month you need to supplement your Social Security and reach your $6,000 monthly retirement goal. $734,000 is a real achievable target for many Americans working toward retirement. It's far more realistic than $2.4 million. And the beauty of it is this: when you own a diversified fund, you're protected. If one company cuts its dividend, the other companies continue paying theirs. If one stock's price declines, the others may compensate. You have stability through diversification. Now, I want to emphasize something important here. These dividend payments are truly passive income. You're not managing properties, you're not running a business, you're not spending hours and hours maintaining your investments. You buy the fund, you hold it, and the dividends come to you. That's as passive as retirement income gets. And here's something else I love about this approach. Your principal keeps growing. If you're living on the dividends and not touching the underlying shares, those shares continue to compound in value over time. The fund will likely grow over the years, which means your dividend income might actually increase, even if the yield percentage stays the same. You've essentially created a growing income stream. Let me be very practical with you about the implementation. When you're ready to invest in dividend-focused ETFs, you'll find them through any major brokerage: Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Ameritrade. They're simple to purchase. You open a brokerage account, you have access to these funds, and you can buy them just as easily as you'd buy a single stock. The fees are typically very low, often under 0.4% annually, which means the costs don't significantly eat into your returns. I also want to address something many people worry about: taxes. Now, dividend income is taxable. It doesn't disappear from a tax perspective just because it's passive income. Qualified dividends, which most of what you'll receive from these funds, are taxed at favorable rates if you've held the shares long enough. For many retirees, especially those with modest other income in retirement, the tax rates on dividends can actually be 0%, 15%, or 20%, depending on your overall income. That's much better than the ordinary income tax rates most people paid during their working years. This brings me back to the core message I want to leave you with today. Yes, the idea of living off dividends is real. Yes, it's achievable. Yes, it's truly passive income in the sense that it requires almost no ongoing effort from you. But the amount you need to generate through dividends is probably far smaller than you've been told, because most of us in retirement have other income sources: Social Security, perhaps pension income, perhaps other investments. Your dividends just need to fill the gap between those sources and your desired spending. And when you approach dividend investing the right way, with diversified funds rather than individual stocks, you create a stable, growing income stream that's protected against the specific risks that come with putting all your eggs in one basket. If you're approaching retirement or already in retirement, I encourage you to do some simple math with your own situation. How much do you expect from Social Security? How much do you think you'll spend each month? What's the gap? Once you know that number, you'll realize that your portfolio goal is probably far more achievable than you feared. And that realization, that moment when you understand that retirement is actually within reach, that's a powerful thing. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If you'd like to explore more about how to structure your retirement income, how to think about Social Security optimization, or how to plan for a long and comfortable life in your 60s and beyond, I invite you to explore more of my channel. I'm here to help you understand that you've earned your retirement, and you don't have to be afraid of the numbers. They're usually more manageable than they seem. Take care, and I'll see you next time on Senior Security with Daniel.